my appreciation, Presiding Officer. I would like to make a point of order under Rule 16.2, Section 3. I have today written to you, Presiding Officer, in light of the points of order raised today by Stephen Kerr and Neil Bibby. I did so after reviewing the official report of my statement on the 14th of November last year. In it, I was explicitly clear that not all meetings require to be minuted. However, summary notes are often available, and that notes would be available for the majority of the engagements that had been reported on. I have also reviewed my answer that day to Mr Bibby. In it, I said I believed that there was a note available for all meetings, but I was explicitly clear in saying, and I quote, "I will need to double-check." I believe that both my formal statement to the Chamber and my answer to Mr Bibby are unambiguous and accurate. However, I have also reviewed my answer to Stephen Kerr. In it, in relation to the summaries of the meeting, I stated, and I quote, "Those summaries will be available for all the engagements that I have been participating in." End quote. Despite being clear earlier in the session that I would need to check, I recognise that I asserted that there would be summaries available for all the engagements. It has since come to light that this is incorrect, and I am sorry for that inadvertent error. Under Rule 16.2 and the provisions of the guidance on correcting the record, members have 20 days to make any correction to the official report. That time has unfortunately passed, and so I am seeking your guidance now, Presiding Officer, on how I can best make members aware of the position I have set out today.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. A member, as you have noted, can seek to correct any inaccuracy on their part within 20 days of the publication of the official report of the relevant proceedings, and clearly that time has passed. I have not yet had an opportunity to read the letter the Cabinet Secretary has sent. However, the Cabinet Secretary has now put the matter on the record today, and in order to ensure that the correction is as widely known as possible, I would encourage him and welcome his intention to write to me, and would also ask that he writes to the business managers, to any members who are not represented on the Parliamentary Bureau, and to ensure that a copy rests with SPICE. Thank you very much. Point of order, Douglas Ross.
Further to the subsequent apology we've now had from the Health Secretary about this situation, I think it's the second time he's had to come to the Chamber to apologise for his conduct on this matter. This was, as Stephen Kerr pointed out earlier today, subject of a Freedom of Information request, which the Government would have released to a Sunday newspaper which was published last week. It's now Tuesday. Our standing orders are very clear that a member must correct the official record as quickly as possible. Therefore, can I ask what discussion there was at Bureau earlier today from the Minister for Parliamentary Business? Because clearly Scottish Government ministers knew about this when they released the FOI, and at the very latest on Sunday when the article appeared. Was there any notification to you, Presiding Officer, that the Health Secretary would seek to apologise and correct the record, not after two members made points of order, but when this became very clear in the media at the weekend?
Thank you, Mr Ross. I can confirm that there was no discussion at Bureau today. Point of order, Stephen Kerr.
I seek your guidance on what I think you will agree is a serious matter. On November the 14th, I asked the Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care if contemporaneous notes existed for all of his ministerial engagements which involved watching Aberdeen Football Club. He said, and I quote, "There are and will be summaries of the discussions that have taken place, which is in accordance with the Ministerial Code," unquote. However, the Sunday Post is in possession of a Freedom of Information response that makes it clear that this isn't true. Clearly, the Cabinet Secretary has provided information to Parliament that is inaccurate, whether intentionally or otherwise. Have you been approached by the Cabinet Secretary to make a correction to the official report? Or has he asked for time to make a statement to Parliament? And what powers do you have as presiding officer to sanction a member who has evidentially made a false statement to this chamber?
Thank you, Mr Kerr. Members are aware that the content of contributions is not normally a matter for the Chair to rule on. It is a matter of paramount importance that members, including ministers, give accurate and truthful information to the Parliament, correcting any inadvertent errors at the earliest opportunity. And if a member has a question about the factual accuracy of another's another member's contribution, they can, of course, raise it directly with that member. And the Chamber is aware that the Parliament has a corrections procedure and how that mechanism operates. We will now move on. Point of order, Neil Bibb.
Further to that point of order, Presiding Officer, I would like to raise a point of order concerning Standing Orders 13.1 and 13.2. On the 14th of November, I asked the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Neil Gray, to publish minutes showing what issues were discussed for all, and not just the majority of the matches that he used the Scottish Government car service to attend. In response to my question, Mr Gray said there will be a note available on what was discussed. In answer to Mr Kerr, he said summaries will be available for all the engagements that I have been participating. As we've heard, the subsequent Freedom of Information releases from the Scottish Government have not provided summary notes for all the events in question. Presiding Officer, the attendance of ministers at sports events where appropriate should be supported by the Government. I have never questioned that. The question I asked in November was whether the correct rules and protocols were followed by the Cabinet Secretary. The question today, however, is about the apparent inconsistency between what Mr Gray told Parliament and what the Government has published. There is a significant risk here of a perception that the Cabinet Secretary may have misled this Parliament, and the situation at present cannot be allowed to stand. Over 2 months have passed and the official report has not been updated, Presiding Officer. Given the amount of time that has passed, it is my view that Mr Gray should therefore give a further statement to explain this glaring inconsistency. Can you confirm, Presiding Officer, that under Rule 13.1 a member can request a personal statement, and under Rule 13.2 a ministerial statement can be requested? And can you confirm both of those avenues are available to Mr Gray to either clarify his own remarks or confirm whether the Government is deliberately withholding information he stated would be available?
Thank you. Mr Bibby is correct with regards to both 13.1 and 13.2, and if such a request were to be received, I would certainly consider it. We will now move on to the next